nice thing about working with the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council is we've got a group of residents who really understand the problem. You know, they're in touch with this, of fire danger, power shutoffs, and lack of communications. It's already a hilly area where cell phone reception is sometimes spotty in a lot of places. And so what we're trying to do is to mitigate that. And this is a community that's built around a common location and a common identity and a common purpose. So that really helps. And we're looking to do this with more fire safe councils as well for the same reasons. The purpose, the goal of the community radio program is to improve the communications and the situational awareness. And situational awareness is something that, you know, the things that happened during fires were there was a lot of confusion. People did not know which way the fire was coming from and which way to evacuate or whether or not to evacuate. These are the kinds of things that we call situational awareness. We want people to have that knowledge and ability to make decisions based upon that situational awareness. And part of this is just to build community resilience to survive disasters. We may not be able to prevent all of them, but we can sure help survive them and endure. Enhance community safety, obviously it's basically restating the same thing, and increase the community participation in the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council. We want to get more people involved so that we can protect our families, our communities, and let's not forget our visitors. We've got all these people floating up and down the river, and sometimes they face some real communication problems. If there's an accident on the river, somebody gets injured, it's very difficult for these folks to get that communicated to the outside world in some of the areas of the river that just have no communications. So we're looking to even solve that problem as well. And we're going to go through a review here. This is kind of a summary of how we see the Neighborhood Radio Watch program. And it pretty much fills your screen here. Hopefully you can see all of this. But I'm just going to start at the bottom here in the left-hand corner. Where this starts at the most basic level is people who have a couple of handy-talkie radios that they can talk to each other. And this is called simplex, when you're just talking radio to radio. So this might be on the left-hand side there, those two radios. Might be a couple of people that are neighbors in a community that have radios and they can stay in touch with each other. Now you bridge that out a little bit. Maybe further down the street, there's another neighborhood with a few other people that have radios. And maybe next to them, there's a couple of folks that don't have radios, but these folks that do have the radios know that, and they're signed on to basically help take care of those folks. If there is something, some emergency or something in the neighborhood and they know about it, they can communicate that to their neighbors. The next level up, and we're going to use a couple of phrases here for radios. One's called Family Radio Service, that's at the bottom. And the next level up is GMRS Radio Service. The neighbors with GMRS radios, GMRS stands for General Mobile Radio Service, and it's one step up from FRS radios. These radios can not only talk to people that have FRS radios, but they can also talk to a GMRS repeater, and that's this image that's right up in the top of the middle of the screen there, the repeater. And what that allows people with GMRS radios to do is that their signal might be weak, but the repeater is pretty strong and it's up on a hilltop. And it picks up those signals and then it rebroadcasts those so that other people, even on the other side of the hill, can hear that same signal. So, and then the top level is people that have GMRS radios as well as ham radio. And these are ham radio operators, and they're able to communicate with the GMRS neighborhood through that repeater, but they're also able to broadcast out through the ham radio frequencies, and they can really cover a lot of distance. So if something needs to go outside of the area, they can carry that traffic, whether it's getting a hold of 911 or the fire department or the sheriff's office. They can do those kinds of things. So and I kind of refer to the folks that are kind of in that area as being kind of like the mother hens. And the mother hens, you don't have to be a ham radio operator to be a mother hen. You can be a GMRS operator too and still be a mother hen. So this is just a brief overview of how this kind of layer cake works with neighbors, helping neighbors using radios. And then you'll notice that over in the right-hand side there, we have this system. It's called the News Pager Neighborhood Warning System. This is something relatively new that we've introduced into the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council. These are inexpensive Motorola pagers, and that thing is small. It's smaller than a little pack of cigarettes. And probably a lot of you had pagers back in the 70s and 80s. You might remember these. These pagers can be programmed to set off an alert tone to get people's attention. And this is important because you don't really want to have your radio on in the middle of the night and listen to all the chatter and stuff that might be coming through. But if you have a way to get an alert that you need to tune in and see if there's something going on in the community, this is one way to do it. And I think we've got a snippet of the sound that this pager makes, and it's loud. It will really wake you up if you've got it going set up in the middle of the night. Okay, and that's a recording of just the other night we set that off. So here's we came up with some alert criteria about these pagers because we had a lot of questions about this. And so the person sending these alert monitors, they monitor fire channels by using a scanner or Broadcastify phone app. And just keep in mind, if you've got Broadcastify, it may not work during a power outage. Person sending the alert must understand that when the alert is sent, there's an observer who's reported smoke. They receive a verification by a second observer also seeing the smoke. They receive verification from the first fire truck on the scene that there actually is some kind of a issue there, and it's a serious vegetation fire and not a small illegal burn. And alerts are only sent when a fire call is verified within or near the Fire Safe Council boundary. And anybody who's triggering these alerts is forbidden from sending any kind of an evacuation notice. This is not an evacuation alert. This is just simply something to get your attention. The evacuation alerts, warnings, and orders are all exclusively the province of the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office and the Office of Emergency Services. So we don't get involved in that stuff. But we do use this to alert people in the community that there's something going on, and that's actually been used now 3 or 4 times in the last few months.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council's Neighborhood Radio Watch Weekly Net. I am your net control this evening, WRFK 930, and my name is Sarah. This net meets each Wednesday night at 7 p.m. The purpose of the net is to exchange information on Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council activities and to test our radio readiness in an emergency. For this net, we are using the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council GMRS Channel 22 repeater. Participants should direct all response to the net control operator, me, to help minimize more than one person talking at the same time. What that means is that in general conversation times of the net, announce your name, your call number if you've not said it for a while, and wait to be called on.
Okay, so that's a little snippet of the local nets that we've been doing every week. And that was Sarah that was on there as the net control. And fortunately, we've got multiple net controls, which is really nice. And these are called safety nets. So what these allow people to do is to check their radio, make sure the radio's working, make sure that the repeater itself is working, because the repeater is an electronic device and it's also subject to sometimes not working. So we need to know this stuff so that we're not out trying to fix stuff when there's an emergency, when it really needs to work. So trying to be proactive. And also the safety nets give everybody the chance to learn their radios, to understand how to use the controls and how to just communicate over a radio. And that's sometimes not, it's not at face value real easy to understand. But I want to reassure anybody about radio communications that you're already using radio communications. If you use a cell phone, that's a radio, simply a radio. The difference is that type of radio is a one-to-one device that depends upon $1 trillion worth of infrastructure out there to work. And if that infrastructure goes down, your cell phone does not work. Whereas radio is a one-to-many communications device. You get on there, anybody else that's on your same channel can hear you. We get more new participants every week, and we're always looking for more net controls. It's great that Coloma Lotus has got now, I think, 4 or 5 people that have done the net control there, which is just great. And a shout out to Patty and Bill and Chris and Deborah for also pitching in there. And this system has now been used for at least 3 fire events just this year. Just in the last few months, there have been incidents in the area where the system has been activated. So let's talk about that just a little bit. Okay, first of all, I want to recognize, we call them the community falcons. These are the folks that are perched up on hilltops. You got Larry and Sandy up on Mount Murphy. You got Bob and Amy on Bain Road. And then you've got Bob and Karen on Baker's Mountain, and you've got Patty and Lonnie up on Marshall Grade. And because of their vantage point, they can spot fires a lot sooner than anybody else who's down in the valley. So, and they've been instrumental in reporting these fires early. And just to go through, you know, what some of this looks like. This is a shot from Bob's house, from Bob Hess's house, of the Mount Murphy fire. Now, this goes back a few years, but you can see the amount of fire damage here that's already been done and how clearly that view is from his hill. And here's the Kelsey fire, also from Bob's house. And this is the Lotus Road Thompson Hill fire in 2018. Burned a little bit closer there. In fact, this is part of Bob's story about getting involved in community radio, because you know, he's had some fires burn pretty close to his house and saw that there was a pretty clear and pressing need to have some kind of a communication system. This picture is courtesy of Amy and Bob Day, the Mount Murphy fire burning up. And this is Joe Petrosky, and Joe took these shots of the fire plume there for the Bassey-Peterson Road fire that was just happened here on July 26th. So, and we're going to hear a little bit of Joe here talking about this. He was on the Weekly Safety Net just this last week, and here's what he had to say about that.
Joe and Margaret, I know you're with us, and Joe, I've heard some great things. I wonder if you want to share anything with the group about the fire on Sunday or anything else?
Yeah, this is Joe, WRFN 767. I noticed the fire just from the plume looking out our backyard, and actually was talking with Bob before he set the pager off. We, at some point, were getting little ash pits, but not really embers, nothing that was, you know, still on fire or had any energy. It was all spent by the time it was getting to us. Hold on a second. So I thought it worked really well. We also sent an email to the people we know in our neighborhood, and even contacted by phone or text some of the older folks. A lot of people were not aware of it, even though it was only a mile or so from our house and theirs. So at least it got the heads up on our whole street, and some of that included information we were getting from Bob on the scanner, so that was real helpful.
So there you go. And as Joe was saying, he had neighbors on his street that didn't have radios, so they, you know, they communicated that information to those folks so that they knew. And my understanding is that it took at least another 30 minutes before there was any kind of a notification that came over through Code Red about any kind of an incident in the area. So that's what this is all about, is to make people aware as soon as possible that there is a potential incident that's in their area, so that they can have that situational awareness and you know, take action if they need to. And we've got a little snippet of a video here too, I believe, that Joe had made. Let's see if we can get this going here. This is of the same fire, the same day.
There's two tankers overhead. They haven't done any drops yet. There's one, there's the other. There's the spotter plane up there. There's a residence with, they've got an ambulance and even a helicopter that landed probably on the orchard.
The Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council is in the news here. Just in this last week, Mountain Democrat put in a disaster preparation supplement, a resource guide into the newspaper, and featured the radio program that the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council has implemented. So shout out to all the folks there, and congratulations on that. Let's talk about equipment. We've got basically 4 or 5 pieces of equipment here that we use. One is handy talkies. Those are just a little handheld radios, mobile radios that go into your car, have a little bit more power. Base station radios, which is really just a mobile radio that's been repurposed as a base station, and we'll talk about that some more. And then scanner radios, which you mentioned earlier, and scanner apps like Broadcastify, and then the pager system. So let's go through some of this. Let's first of all, we're going to talk about FRS and GMRS radios, and you don't need to memorize all this. You're not going to get tested at the end of this. They have the same channels, 22 channels. They are interoperable, so an FRS radio can talk to a GMRS radio and vice versa. In the case of FRS, those are handy talkies only. But in the case of GMRS, you can also have handy talkies, mobile radios, and base station radios. A handy talkie has batteries, so it runs on batteries. So it doesn't need external power to operate. It just needs to have its batteries charged. GMRS, the HTs also have batteries. Mobile and base station radios, though, do need to have some kind of external power. And FRS doesn't require an outside antenna. In fact, you cannot connect an outside antenna to an FRS radio because the antenna is welded to the radio. It's stuck on there permanently. With GMRS, you've got a variety of different outside antennas that you can connect to those radios. So it gives you much more options. A power level, maximum of 2 watts on FRS, but on GMRS, you can go up to 50 watts. More power means more range, means you're gonna get further and people can hear you better. Also, if we're using a GMRS repeater, FRS people can hear the repeater, what's the traffic on there, but they can't transmit to it. So only with a GMRS radio can you receive and transmit to a GMRS repeater. And FRS radios, very simple. Those are little blister pack radios at Home Depot. They don't require any kind of programming. They're basically push to talk. And GMRS radios, they do need a little bit of programming in order to enable repeater use. And that's something that our club takes care of. We make sure that the radio is set up so that you can use it. FRS doesn't require a license, but GMRS does. It requires a license, $70, but that license is good for 10 years and covers your entire family. That's your spouse, your kids, your grandkids, your parents, your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters. Covers just about everybody in your immediate and closely extended family. Approximate cost of the radios, you can buy those little FRS radios for $15 to $50. They're inexpensive, they're cheap, they're freely available. If you do nothing else, think about, just consider getting FRS radios. So at least you and your family can stay in touch with each other in the neighborhood. And then hopefully you'll hook up with some other folks that have GMRS radios that can give you a little wider coverage. GMRS can be more expensive, but not bad. $75 to $300, depending upon what model of radio you get and what kinds of options and bells and whistles. And again, I mentioned that these FRS and GMRS radios are interoperable. They can talk to each other. They're easy to set up. They're easy to make calls. They're also, by the way, potentially less prone to interference because they don't have very much range. So you're not going to hear a lot of traffic that's at a distance. You're going to hear just nearby traffic, and there'll be fewer opportunities for somebody to interfere with your radio. Disadvantage is the same thing. It's a limited range radio. It requires the same frequency band. All these radios need to be on the same frequency band, which is the FRS, GMRS frequency band. And there's fewer advanced features like that paging alert that you heard. FRS radios cannot do that, but GMRS radios can. And GMRS repeater, the reason we do that is, again, more power, more range, helps cover the valley, put up on a hilltop, so it's got great range, has many more advanced features that it'll support. Disadvantages is that it requires GMRS radios. Radios must be programmed to transmit to the repeater and then also to receive from it to some extent, just to avoid other interference with other radios. And then it's a more expensive infrastructure in radios. Fortunately, Bob Hess has got some equipment that was donated. He's been able to put up a number of GMRS repeaters, and fortunately there's one of them right in the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council. They require some frequency and channel management. There's only just a limited number of GMRS channels that we can use, and we want to make sure that we don't interfere with the Sacramento Valley or that they interfere with us. So we try to be careful about where we shape that signal. And for that reason, they can't reach everywhere. They're not unlimited on their power and their range. End of Clark Mountain Road is one example where we've got kind of a dead spot, and Bob's already working on getting that fixed. And the sites need to have 24/7 power backup. So it is electronics. It does need to have solar backup or generator backup or something to keep that thing up and running. And this is some interesting maps that Bob made of just to give you some idea of what the coverage is with that repeater. You can see these areas in green, and you can see where Lotus is just above the map legend there, and then Bob's house is just off to the left, I believe, there a little bit. And the green area shows good coverage, and this is for a handy talkie. This is just a little simple radio you're carting around that maybe has 2 to 5 watts of power. Good coverage in all those green areas, marginal coverage or medium coverage in those yellow areas, and then no coverage in the white areas. But if you get an outdoor antenna and maybe a little bit more power, we can even mitigate some of those no coverage areas. So this is what it looks like for people who are using base station radio. Okay, now you can see the coverage is far greater. The areas of white are far smaller, but just about everybody in the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council can pick up that signal, if not with a handy-talkie, then with a base station or a mobile radio. And here's some equipment levels. You're probably wondering, you know, what do I really need? And part of this is going to be, what do you really want? And we do have a radio needs assessment that you can fill it out and you can send it to us. And we'll pretty well be able to sum up from the information you provide us there what kind of radios you want or can afford to have. At the very bottom level, the very basic thing would be a pocket pager only. That's maybe a $25 item. A scanner would not be a bad thing to have. They're a little bit more expensive. Certainly a handheld walkie-talkie or HT radio with a charger and a spare battery is nice, and that's about $75 there. A mobile radio, a little bit more, maybe about $150 for a mobile radio with an antenna that sits on the roof. It plugs into your cigarette lighter, or it can be wired permanently to your car battery. And we help people, we give them advice as to how to install that kind of stuff. And that same mobile radio can become a base station radio just by adding a power supply, an external power supply. These radios are designed to work on 12 volts, just like your car does. So in the car, they can plug into the cigarette lighter, they can hook to the battery, but at your house, you need to have a 12-volt power supply. So you add that on there. So maybe at home, you're looking at maybe $150 to $200 with an external antenna. External antenna is going to improve the reception. Next step up would be to have a little bit more of a full-blown station. You already figured you got a base station radio, so now you add a scanner in there. Then the next level up would be a scanner plus a base station plus the ability to trigger the news pager system, and that's going to be reserved for just a few people. But that really puts people in a position where they can really be aware of what's going on there. The scanner is going to tell you what is happening. You'll be able to monitor the fire traffic, the fire communications with the fire stations, and know a little bit more about what's going on there and help others. So handy talkies, we're going to look at a few models here. And Bob, do you want to kind of pick it up here at this point and start talking about these radios?
So when Alan says cheap, we're talking used radios, and we're buying radios that are generally coming out of public safety service. They replace their radios fairly often. We end up buying the radios, or you can buy your own radio from various used radio suppliers, or even off of eBay if you know where to go. And I'm certainly here to help you with that. The radio you're looking at there is a very nice radio. We program those radios. They have a nice display on them. And that display where on that particular channel says repeater, so you know you're talking through the repeater. That Vertex radio, I purchased that one, and it's actually going to one of our Fire Safe Council residents here in Coloma, probably tomorrow. And it was $65. So a radio that is used can be a very good radio. Now, for about the same amount of money, you can buy a new radio, but the new radios are generally made in China. They're cheap. You drop them once and it's probably gone forever. They don't do the paging alerts that are so important to what we're trying to do right now. These used radios are pretty bulletproof. So that one is the Vertex. Alan, do you have a picture of any of the other ones here?
I don't know that I got the, oh, hold on.
I have radios here with me if I could show my screen, but I don't have to. So,
yeah, Bob, I don't think I've got the Kenwood up there, just the Vertex.
Okay, that's okay. The Kenwood, the primary radios used that we have both in the Oak Hill Fire Safe Council and the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council are the Kenwood TK380s and the Vertex VX180 and 230s. We also have some residents in both fire safe councils who've gone off and bought essentially new versions of those radios. The used radios work equally as well as the new versions, but the new versions are nice and shiny, and you're confident you have a radio you know is going to work and has a warranty. So the used radios you can buy somewhere between generally $60 and $80. The new radios are going to be the handy talkies, anywhere from $200 to $400, depending on the radio. Every radio we're recommending have the paging capability. The audio on these commercial radios is just loud and clear. I mean, think about it. If you're a police officer out there in the field, you want to be able to hear that audio, and these are the same kind of radios they're going to be using. They're durable, and the only other thing I'll mention is we've had a number of Fire Safe Council folks hearing that a repeater is going to be installed, and they've gone off ahead of time and bought some of the radios we do not recommend. So if you're thinking about buying a radio now, just scratch Midland and Baofeng off the list. And always, you're welcome to check with me first. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I'm talking about Midland here. Just a point about this, Midland does make very good GMRS radios. It's just that our system, using the paging tones, and we also use a narrow band format for the repeater. No, we use a wide band format for our repeater, but sorry, Bob. But the Midland radios are set for narrow band, and so it causes some problems with the audio. The audio tends to be really low with those Midlands. It doesn't have any punch, and it may sound loud and distorted coming back out of the repeater to you. Those are radios that are okay for FRS or GMRS simplex use, but they're not really the best radios to use with the repeater, and they won't do that paging tone. And then Bob, I got some more stuff here, but you can cover this too. I mean, we've tested all these radios. I do have an Anytone. It's a great radio, and it will decode the paging tones. But one big difference with these radios, the Baofengs and the BTECs and all these other ones, Waxon and so on, is that they have a ton of buttons on them. And it's really easy to get yourself off into the weeds by pushing the wrong button, and then you can't find your way back. And believe me, I've had that happen with my radios where I pushed something and I thought, how did I end up here? And I couldn't find my way back. So they're just better if you're a more advanced radio user or a ham who needs greater versatility. But for the Fire Safe Council program, for the Neighborhood Radio Watch program, you don't need those kinds of radios. Okay, Bob.
You know, Alan, I actually have my little mad scientist display here in front of me that I have set up for several Fire Safe Councils or their chairs to demonstrate different radios. And if it would just take me a minute, but I can let everybody hear what some of these paging tones sound like. But first of all, we're talking about mobile radios now. And the interesting thing with mobile radios is that there are really not that many available. The one you're looking at there is an excellent radio. It was made by a company called Vertex that Motorola purchased. So you can find that radio with the Motorola name or the Vertex name. And unfortunately, Motorola stopped selling that radio about a year ago and no longer makes analog mobile radios. So for an analog mobile radio, you're gonna, if you wanna buy one new, you're gonna have to go to companies like Kenwood or ICOM. The place to use these radios, and I really strongly recommend, especially if you're gonna be a net control station, kind of directing traffic on the radio, I really recommend you have a base station radio. It's a tiny little radio. You can put it on the kitchen counter, but you do need a very small outdoor antenna to go with it. You can also take the same radio, quickly throw it in your car if you've got to evacuate, and plug it into the cigarette lighter and use a little magnetic mount antenna with a 6-inch whip on the top of it and throw it in the car. Go ahead, Alan.
Okay, Bob, you want to say some more just about the base station radio? Basically, a base station radio is the same as a mobile radio. It's just been repurposed to go in your house, and you just need to have an external 12-volt power supply, roughly about $75. We found some pretty good ones. I even found one that will run these radios and has a cigarette lighter outlet in the front of it, so you can use that same cigarette lighter adapter and plug it into that power supply. And it also has a USB port to charge your cell phone while you're sitting there. But again, for a base station, you need to have an external antenna and a cable. Not a good idea to have that antenna inside the room with you where the radio is. It doesn't broadcast a heck of a lot of power, but it's stuff that you don't want to sit around in too long and be exposed to it.
Alan, just a comment on the previous slide, the one before that. Okay, you'll notice that that particular radio was programmed to say repeater.
Oh, wait, here, let me back up. Sorry, I'm moving too quick for you.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that you'll notice that there is a knob on the left that's on-off volume. There's an up and down arrow that changes channels, and all those buttons down, the four down at the bottom, they don't do anything because we could program them to do something, but they're going to confuse you, and we recommend they don't. The only difference is if you want to set off an alert tone for certain residents, we will program one of those buttons to actually set off the alert, meaning that that particular person has a scanner, has verified there's a fire, preferably somebody else in the Fire Safe Council has confirmed there's a fire, and then they will set off the alert and let everybody know. The next radio, next slide, Alan, that is another excellent radio. By the way, those were both purchased used, and both radios can be purchased for around $100. And what I've found is that most used mobile radios are in excellent condition. The handheld radios have some scratches and blemishes. Most mobile radios are in excellent condition. So again, this particular radio, just an up-down button and a volume, and only we program on certain radios, we'll program P4, the P4 button to set off the paging alert. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I want to say too that you know, these radios, because they come out of commercial service, just to amplify what Bob said, they are really built tough. I mean, they're designed to be dropped and kicked around accidentally. I mean, you don't want to do that with your radio, but they're designed not to fail in an emergency, which is where first responders need those radios to work the most. So they really build them solid. I've got one of the Kenwood TK 380s that we saw earlier, and that thing, it feels like a brick in my hand. It's small, it's hard, it's got a really strong case on it. I could throw it through a window and then go pick the radio up and then use it just like it never happened. So urban
legend, Alan, is that some police departments have told their officers they can use them as a weapon if they have to.
I believe it. I would not want to get hit with my handy-talkie if somebody swung that at me. It really has got some heft to it. Okay, scanners. Bob, do you want to talk about scanners?
Yeah, I have found two scanners, and what we like, if you take a close look at that scanner on the screen, it says tone out. Tone out is essentially a scanner with that capability that can actually be programmed only to open the speaker if your local fire station is paged for a fire or a medical alert or a car accident. But it minimizes listening to that traffic on that scanner, which is going almost continuously. The main dispatch for fire is out of Camino. Camino serves all of Alvarado and Amador counties. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of calls continuously going for not only fires, but debris burns, illegal burns, a medical problem, somebody fainted in their house, they're gonna call the fire station. A car accident, those scanners are going all the time. There are 2 Uniden scanners on the market today that have the ability to just mute out everything but your local fire station calls. I live in the Aerobee area, and so I have my scanner programmed for the 3 closest fire stations, which are Garden Valley, Lotus, and Rescue. I will typically hear that scanner go off about 3 times a day, and that's 24 hours a day. And most of the time it's nothing I'm interested in, but when the big one happens, I'll hear it when that scanner goes off. That is a pretty expensive scanner right there that sells for well over $300. The other one that Uniden makes is the one listed there at the top, the BCT15X, $185. Really nice scanner. Go ahead, Alan.
Okay, and then please continue, Bob, because Bob has been working on these pagers here. He's currently testing the Motorola Minotaur 3, and I can tell you all about it.
This happens to be a Kenwood TK 380, and you probably can't see it, the display, but the display says paging. And by saying paging, you can keep this radio on 24/7, and it will hear nothing. It won't hear our Tuesday net. It won't hear Bob Day up on the Bassey Road Summit talking to Patty up at the Marshall Grade Summit. It will only hear a page. So I'm going to set off a page. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, now at this point, the radio is going to keep beeping and the speaker, unless you mute it, and the speaker is going to open up and you're going to hear an announcement from whoever set off the alert. There is a fire at Peterson Road and Bassey Road. So that's the Kenwood, and these radios all have kind of different tones. This is the little Vertex radio I showed you. We're going to set this one off. One of these, this is a base station or a mobile radio. You can see it's not too big. You see it says repeater. The nice thing about this particular radio is you can leave the volume down and you'll still hear the page. So you can leave this thing on overnight and hear the page, but you won't hear any other traffic on the channel. And the page is really pretty loud. So let me set it off. Wake you up, Alan?
I'm awake, Bob.
Okay, good. Okay, and the last one I'm going to show you, Bill, one of our Fire Safe Council members, has one of these, which is kind of a lower price Motorola mobile radio. And I'll set this one off. Now this is just going to it will keep doing that for days until you turn it off. I think that'll wake you up in the middle of the night. So the last thing I'm going to show you is a little pocket scanner.
Hey Bob, hold the radios up just a little bit higher. They're kind of below your camera level there. Okay,
this is the radio that Bill, who lives in Coloma Heights, bought $50 base station radio. And this one is the Vertex 2200. And the last thing I'm going to show you is the Motorola. Can you see this, Alan?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Motorola Minotaur 3 pager. Now, Tony in our amateur radio club, who I think is actually online here, has been shopping around trying to find a really good price on these. We found them everywhere from $15 to $25. And we are currently testing these in the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council. And once we're sure that our method of making these pagers work, we're gonna roll it out into the Oak Hill Fire Safe Council. So I'm gonna set this one off and hopefully it works. There it goes. Hear that, Alan?
I heard it, Bob. Loud and clear.
Okay, so and what will happen is the speaker on that pager will go off. It also has a vibrate position. The speaker will go off once it receives the alert, and then you'll hear, there's a fire on Bassey Road at the intersection with Peterson. So that's the way the paging function works, and that's why we're recommending these kind of radios. They are so important to what we're trying to do because you The typical non-ham kind of person don't want to hear all that traffic on the radio. You just want to know when there's a problem. Go ahead, take it away, Alan.
Well, too, Bob, you pointed out something I hadn't thought about, that, sometimes when you can't carry a radio, let's say you're out in the back 40 or something, but it's pretty easy to clip this little pager onto your belt and take that with you. So, it's not just either or. You can have both of those. You want to talk about these antennas again? You and Tony have just been instrumental in putting all this stuff together. I want to take a moment here too and just recognize Bob Hess for the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council. Bob has been instrumental in making all of this happen. I might have been running around planting a few seeds about community radio, but Bob is the guy who watered them and fertilized them and nourished them and made them all grow. And all of this stuff that you're seeing here on this presentation night is all the result of the work that Bob has been doing. And the club, he's got a lot of help with other members of the club, but Bob has been instrumental in making this all happen.
Well, let me just comment. Base station antennas, typically you can't find one for under $100. We've had a bunch, so many radios. I mean, our repeaters have been donated to us from various sources, some here in the county, and from commercial companies. And we got a bunch of mobile radio antennas, like the one shown there, which normally would go on the roof of a car. And one of our radio club members with something called a plasma metal cutter was able to cut out these little circles that make it a very effective base station antenna, and we're selling those for $35. This is not, we're not Amway here or something. We're just passionate about getting a radio in your hands and doing it on the cheap.
Yeah, and I think that was Tony, right? That's got that plasma cutter that did that? Yeah, and I think Tony is on here tonight. So shout out to Tony, great idea. Reason why you're seeing that too, I want to back up just a little bit here. That is a mobile antenna, and they usually have what's called a magnetic mount that they screw onto. And then that magnetic mount has a short cord that comes inside. You usually have to route it down through the door or something, and through the weather stripping. And the antenna, the way for that antenna to function and function well is it needs to have the car body underneath it to provide a kind of a, what's called a counterpoise to that antenna so that it works well. If it didn't have that little plate or that car body underneath it, then it wouldn't work nearly as well as it does. So that's why you see that big round plate below there, is it kind of takes the place of what a car body would normally do to keep that antenna working right. And those are, by the way, Midland sells those antennas, the same antenna just like that, and they charge a lot more money for it. So it was a real coup to get those antennas, and then to have Tony make those bases is just terrific. Now, those omnidirectional antennas, what you just saw was an omnidirectional, which means it picks up in 360-degree radius all the way around that antenna. And sometimes you need something with a little bit more directionality. And you'll recognize that antenna. It looks a lot like a TV antenna. Same principle. The TV antenna, you see it over there on the left-hand side, is a directional antenna. It's not an omnidirectional antenna. So we point those antennas at the repeater, so we get the most signal, because it puts out the most signal in one direction and also receives the most signal in one direction. So in some of the fringe areas, that's what we go on. You want to talk about that one, Bob? That's at Jim's residence?
Yeah, I'll just comment that for those of you in my neck of the woods in Aerobee, Jim actually lives beyond Aerobee, down Luneman. And Jim is pretty passionate about this radio thing. He's tied into the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council one way or another. And that's Jim up on the roof, and by golly, he wanted that repeater to work, and it works really well with that antenna. Which he actually bought that antenna. It's a $500 antenna, which we got him used for, I believe, $35.
Yeah, you don't want to go buy this stuff yourself, folks. We can save you a lot of money, and also to second what Bob was saying, we don't make any money on these. This is done at cost. So all we do is we get the equipment, we get it programmed, and then pass it along to you. We're a nonprofit organization. And we do this because this is what we love, and this is our way to pay back the communities that we live in, is to create some safety, to get some radio safety into, because we've seen cell phones fail. We know that they fail. We know that internet fails. And we know that radio works. It's always been a mantra of ham radio operators that radio works when all else fails. So that's what this is all about. It's not a money-making operation by any means. Now, that said, people have offered to make donations to the club. That's fine. We appreciate that. That will go into our repeater fund. It'll go into helping us promote more radio programs across the county. But that money stays here in the community. It doesn't go anywhere else. Okay, so next steps. Here we are, folks. Join the online group, groups.io /G Coloma Lotus GMRS dash, all those stuff in there. So, and we'll leave this screen up for a little bit. Get a GMRS license, or at least start thinking about that. Okay, that $70 is going to be a good investment for you. It's going to allow you to participate in the full-blown neighborhood radio watch program in the Coloma Lotus area. We'll help you determine your radio needs. Like I say, there is a two-way radio needs assessment. And if you go to our website, the edcarc.net, that's El Dorado County Amateur Radio Club.net, just the letters, edcarc.net, there is a section called Neighborhood Radio Watch. And that two-way radio needs assessment is in that section. You can find it, you can download it, fill it out, and return it to us. Get your radios, notify Bob, notify Deborah, notify the folks in the Coloma Lotus Fire Safe Council that you want to get involved. Get them programmed for the repeater, the pager, and the other GMRS and FRS channels, and get on the air. Learn how to use and care for your radio. That's what this is all about. Participate in the safety net check-ins. They're a lot of fun. People get to just check in, and they don't need to do anything more than that. Some people will relate to some of the stuff that they've been doing during the week, or some of the activity that they talked about with the fire, as you heard there with the chunk of audio that we played there for Joe. And participate in other kinds of group events that Coloma Lotus has got in planning stages right now for you. Keep your radio on, tune to the news pager channel if nothing else. By the way, I don't think I described what news pager stands for. News stands for Neighborhood Early Warning System Pager. So we get news pager out of that. And consider becoming a Falcon. If you've got a high location, you are in a great position to be a real asset to your neighbors with your view up there. And you should really seriously consider getting a good radio that you can hit that repeater with well and communicate. Or mother hen. And I like to, that's an affectionate term for me. Mother hen is somebody who just is looking out for others, takes care of his neighbors, takes care of his neighborhood. And show your family how to use radio, so in case you're not all together in the same place, they know what to do, they know how to pick up the radio, and they know how to use it. Ask questions, get advice, and contact us. Anything that you need to know, just contact us. So somebody's asking, what is the additional cost of an antenna and cabling for a scanner? Bob, you want to take that?
Okay, good, very good question. And the answer is the El Dorado County radio system that serves fire and sheriff is absolutely excellent. And the answer is you use a little antenna right on the scanner. You do not have to put up an outside antenna. Just about anywhere in the county, you're going to hear it just fine.
I see a question from Janet. Do you need to take an exam to get your license, or is this different or more basic license than a ham radio license? Great question. We just skipped right over that. Didn't even mention that. No, you don't need to take a test to get a GMRS license. That's one of the beauties of this thing, is you don't have to know megahertz or kilohertz or where it hurts. You don't have to study electronics to pass a test. You just need to pay the fee, and they issue that license within just a few days. It really comes pretty quick.
You'll usually get that license within 24 to 48 hours. That Janet, by the way, is one of my Aerobee neighbors.
Yeah, kind of a sidelight here too about the licensing thing for ham radio. You'd think that because we've got a ham radio license that we would just be able to operate on GMRS radios, radio frequencies as well. Not so. We also had to get a license for GMRS apart from our ham license to do that. Yeah. Kathleen was asking, how do we buy radios from you? Can we get them turnkey, all pre-programmed? Yeah. Want to answer that, Bob?
Oh yeah, no, any radio. I've been trying to buy radios in lots. The last lot was a lot of 30 radios. And I'm selling them to you for what I pay for them simply because I want to get this program rolling. I program them, I check them out, and I buy brand new batteries for those radios. And we have other members of our radio club who are also doing that. But here in Coloma Lotus, I'm doing most of that.
Okay, so Deborah was asking, how can we tell you about Broadcastify? Broadcastify is just a phone app. You can get that on your cell phone. And why would you use an app if you had a scanner? Well, if you have a scanner, you've got more versatility there. The Broadcastify app will travel around with you, whereas a scanner wouldn't. So you could use both of them in different circumstances, depending upon where you are.
Well, you can also, there are plenty of, and I have one here, there are plenty of little portable scanners too. And Uniden does make 2 little handheld scanners that are capable of detecting the fire tones. By the way, Neville is somebody, we're working real hard for Neville and his group of neighbors who live way down in a beautiful, very isolated part of the Fire Safe Council down by the river with pretty poor radio coverage, and we're in the process of fixing that for them.
We really appreciate everybody joining us tonight. It looks like we had over 50 participants here, and so there's a lot of follow-up, and we're happy to answer any questions offline. And go ahead and let everybody go. Again, thanks, and we sure appreciate your interest in the Neighborhood Radio Watch program.